Jocko, I am a chronic excuse maker.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 41 of the Traders Podcast. I am your host. Super appreciative that you're joining me here today as we press forward to Christmas time, the new year. But welcome to episode 41, the Traders Podcast. And today we're going to talk about how the best traders in the world operate. We're going to look at some statistics, some behaviors that these individuals take on so that you could look at them and apply them to your own trading and investing. So we're going to get into all of that here today. We'll also do a quick update of the markets, take a look at what's happening. And yes, we will visit with Mr. Roku to see how he is performing. A little bit in the red today. This is the day before the Fed meeting, or not the Fed meeting, the Fed rate cut decision, which we're going to get tomorrow, and also Papa Powell's press conference at 2:30. So there's some volatility in the markets today. We're going to get into all that and more. Episode 41 of the Traders Podcast. Let's go. All right, so been a little bit of time, took last week off, back at you this week. Where do we currently stand with the markets? Well, as I said at the outset of the show, tomorrow we are going to have the Federal Reserve press conference with Jerome Powell. And why that's important is because he's going to announce whether or not there's going to be another rate cut. The Fed has already cut twice so far this year, once in September, once in November. The first cut was a 0.5 basis point cut. The second one was 0.25, and the markets are pricing in, that's about a 96% probability that it's going to happen, another quarter point cut that's going to happen tomorrow. However, the bigger question is how many rate cuts are going to happen in 2025? And if you look at the economic data related to the labor market, related to manufacturing, production, all those things, it's showing that the economy is strong. And so with that, what market makers are anticipating is for the Fed to cut back, dial back how many rate cuts they were anticipating in 2025. So here's what we have to keep in mind is if the economy is thriving, if it's performing at a high level, there's really no need to cut interest rates. And so what's going to happen tomorrow is the Fed will reveal their economic projections for cuts for 2025. And more than likely what we are going to see is the number of cuts from that last estimate is going to decrease. This is where the volatility is going to come into play in the markets, because if if the dealers, the market makers do not like, and when I say dealers, market makers, I'm talking about Wall Street, these big institutional traders, if they don't like the economic projections, you're going to see a lot more red. You'll see a sell-off. So just be prepared for that. We'll get that announcement tomorrow at 2 p.m. The press conference is at 2:30. But other than that, things have been pushing higher. Bitcoin has hit 108,000. My target on Bitcoin by the end of the year is 120,000. And come 2025, I am expecting correction. It's so needed. We're overheated. We have to get a pullback. I'll talk about that in a later episode. I'm going to do a preview for next year for everyone on the Traders Podcast. But that's what's currently happening in the markets. And now let's talk about what the best traders do, what their mindset is, what their behaviors are, so that you could take some of these things and apply it to your own trading and investing. Let's check it out. All right, so what are those behaviors that stand out for the most successful traders? And how can we incorporate them into our practice? Now, I just want to start with some statistics here as we begin this podcast. And, one of the things that you'll often hear is that day trading is hard. And it is. And this statistic is often cited, and that's 95% of day traders lose money. And what they call traders like myself or people who don't work for an institution, we are known as retail traders. So think of that, 95% fail. But if you take that into consideration and really put some context around it, it does make sense, because how many people are actually working as hard as they possibly can to learn this stuff, who are willing to go through the losses, the losing streaks, and persevere? And it's not many. And the statistic, or not even statistic, but the example that I often give is I used to be a high school principal, and you think about how many high schools or just schools in general across the United States there are and how many principals there are. Well, of all those principals, how many of them are highly effective, who can engender change and improvement in kids? It's probably about 5% who do it at an extremely high level. So that 95% statistic about people who fail, right? It makes sense, because the greats at anything are going to be those ones committed, obsessed, willing to do whatever it takes within reason, ethically, obviously, in order to succeed. And there's this other statistics. 90% of traders fail within 5 years. So what that shows is that people give up, right? And the one thing that you have to have in trading and investing is patience. It doesn't happen overnight. I work with a lot of individuals through coaching, and one of the things that really stands out is impatience, the willingness to push through those challenging moments, and they're going to come. I've talked about it so much here on the podcast. It's not something where you're going to win every day or win every week or win every month. You're going to have bad days. You're going to see drawdown in your account. You're going to see red. You're going to see big losses. You have to have the ability to accept that's part of what you do. And that's why I often recommend to people that start slow, start small. Don't start with a huge amount of risk. $20 per trade. And when you can show yourself that you can do that successfully and consistently, then you can move up. So if we know that there's a high failure rate, right? And a lot of it's just people giving up, not continuing to push through. What is it? That 5%, why are they successful? What is the mindset, or what are the things that are associated with these successful traders and investors? And it's about the prioritization of discipline, the ability to say you're going to do something and follow through with it, your integrity. It's about risk management, and it's about controlling your emotions. And I talked just a few minutes ago about being able to look at a trade that you're in and seeing that it's in the red, that you're down, you're losing money, and being okay with it, accepting it, knowing that, hey, this doesn't mean that you're a bad trader. It's just a probability. This is purely mathematics, and you have to be okay with that. And one last statistic I want to cite here, and this is from the CFA Institute. They report that successful traders often rely on consistent long-term strategies rather than short-term speculation. And so what does that mean? It essentially means that swing traders, or swing trading, is the more profitable route to go versus day trading. And I will tell you this, I am a day trader. I swing trade too, obviously, but it's not for everybody. It's intense. You are operating based on what the charts are telling you about a particular company, using 1 to 3 minute charts, looking at the 10-minute chart, 15-minute chart, and you have to make fast decisions. Now, you have to be deliberate in that process. But like the statistic states, swing trading, where you have time, and a swing trade is anything that lasts longer than a day. When you have that time where you can be patient, you're not in a rush for your trade to hit the target. That is a more conducive way, and probably a less stressful way, for people to get involved in trading. And that's where I've kind of changed a bit in the past 2 years. Is day trading is not for everybody, but swing trading is something that everybody can do, because it doesn't require that intensity needed like we see in day trading. All right, so let's get into what are those behaviors and actions that the most successful traders and investors take consistently that make them successful, to put them into that 5%. And a lot of this stuff are things that I've already talked about here on the Traders Podcast. But number one, it's about preparation and having a daily routine. And this is from the National Bureau of Economic Research. And it says that the most successful traders spend at least 2 hours daily, 2 hours, analyzing markets, reading news, and reviewing their trades. So I'm teaching a class right now called Profit Pioneers, where it's all about back trading, which means you're simulating the markets, you're practicing your entry, stop losses, and profit takers. And the whole reason I'm teaching this class is I want to drive home the importance to aspiring traders and investors that you have to practice. This is not something where you're going to sit down and automatically start ripping off $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million trades. It just doesn't work that way. And if you think of any successful athlete, musician, anybody who has a skill that they're revered for, they're putting in the time. And so 2 hours, can you put aside 2 hours a day? Do you want to be great at this? It's going to require that level of sacrifice and commitment if you want to be in the top percentage of this, right? So preparation is part of that. Emotional control. So here's a statistic from Dr. Brett Steenbarger. I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly. But exceptional emotional regulation, which basically means that you can control your shit. You're not going to lose your mind when you see you're down $1,000, $10,000 on a trade. You're not going to panic. You're not going to freak out. You're not going to think you're a terrible trader. You have your plan, you set the plan, you follow it. If you want to lose money, be overly emotional, not be able to be in control of yourself. And I always say this when I'm talking to aspiring traders: if you get emotional very easily and you can't control yourself, this is definitely not for you. You have to have the ability to be flat, calm, and all hell could be breaking loose with your trade. You're good, right? Trust your plan, trust the process, and let it happen. And then finally, patience. Being patient with the markets, allowing your trade time to develop. So whether it's a day trade, if you've set your profit target and your stop loss, let the trade play out. Don't move your stop every second. Have rules for how you move your stop. Have rules for how you adjust your profit taker. The same thing with the swing trade. Follow your plan. Be patient. When we're impatient, we're not going to maximize the returns from our trades. We're going to get out early, and then that thing will run, and you'll be like, man, why didn't I stay in? Well, you should have just trusted your plan. So patience is key. Okay, so how can we take this information and apply it to our trading and investing today? And as we are heading into the end of the year, how can we reflect on our practice to make adjustments so that we're even better in 2025? And again, start small. Guys, don't trade with huge size when you're just getting started. Okay? What do I mean by that? Start with $20 risk on your trade. If you can't successfully day trade or swing trade $20 and hit profits, you have no business trading $1,000 R. You don't. You have to be consistent. You have to start small. And typically what we'll see when traders panic or get stressed out or really bad anxiety, it's because they're putting too much risk on the table. You should not be trading money that you cannot afford to lose. So start small and then slowly, gradually, over time, increase your risk 1% to 2%. Okay? The other piece is focus on managing your risk. Have your stop loss in place. Have rules in place for when you move your stop loss. If you're profitable, lock in some of those gains. What do I mean by that? If you have 100 shares, sell 10 of those shares. Take your stop loss, move it into the money, create an unlosable trade. So there are things that you could do to lock in your gains so that you can't lose in a trade. Okay, and that's something that you could practice through back trading. And you want to make sure you're preparing and doing that. So have that risk management element in your trading, and that's got to be part of your trading plan. Oh yeah, trade with a plan. Have a set of rules that you're following when you're trading and investing. If you're just sitting there like, oh, I'm going to press this button, this looks good, I'm going to trade this, you will lose money. You have to have a plan. All right. Dr. Brett Steenbarger, who I referenced earlier, who did some research on trading and investing. There's a report out there. You can read through it on your own. But having a well-defined trading plan increases your long-term success by over 30%. So if you're looking for something tangible that's going to impact you right away, there's 30% impact positively. Have a plan. If you want more information about how to create a plan, I have some free information I can send to you. hit me up in the comments, email me, couragepaysbetter@gmail.com. And then the last piece is continue learning, right? Here's another statistic for you. 88% of professional traders constantly, right? Every day, review and adapt their strategies based on the market changing. Because here's the thing, the market doesn't just go straight up and it doesn't just go straight down. It's funky, right? And we have to be able to adapt and pivot. And that's another thing that I often see working with coaching students is they'll only trade one way. They'll only trade bullish. They won't adapt in short or buy puts and capitalize on the downside. You have to be able to do that if you're going to survive in this world, right? Because it's heartless. The market's heartless. It'll take your money, smack you in the face, and not feel 1 ounce of anything for it. So there you go. If you want to be in that top 5% of successful traders, you now know what it takes. You have some actionable things that you can apply to your practice, and you can make it happen. Now, let's take a look at Mr. Roku. All right, guys, so let's take a look at Mr. Roku here on the charts quickly. On the daily, this is midday, and just to give you the date so you know when I'm looking at this, this is December 17th. It's about 11:09, and let's take a look at Mr. Roku, how he is performing here. And you can see that not much has changed since the last time that we talked. It's been moving sideways since we had this big move up on December 4th. We had some selling that came in here, and then really the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days have been almost inside that big candle. So we do have pressure building off of that candle from December 4th, and we are inside of that gap that was created on the gap down back in February of this year, 2024. And probably what's going to happen, we'll get a catalyst. There's been some speculation that the trade desk is going to buy Roku out. If that happens, it will smash this gap. It will move higher. And really, the targets we're looking for, being that we're above all these moving average, could be that 200 SMA on the weekly, which is 149.28. But as we've seen with Roku, at least since that drop, it's a slow mover. Even this push, or the few pushes that we got where it made some moves, you could see that it's had some deep corrections that push back down. So we can't get too far ahead of ourselves, but I do like the fact that we are holding above this 10-day exponential moving average. We're above all the moving averages, and a catalyst is probably what it's going to take for us to bust out of this gap and fill it, and then to move on from there. And let's just take a look at the weekly. Again, you could see here, we're just kind of moving sideways. We do have an inside candle right now building pressure. And if we look at the monthly, to me, and I pointed this out to the members of the Courage community this weekend, this looks like a big old double bottom to me right here, right off of this trend line support. Now, that neckline is pretty high up there, so it's going to take a lot to close above that. But if it does, this thing can start running. So Mr. Roku, 83.54, we'll take it. That's darn good for it. And we'll check in back with this beast next time when we come together for the Traders Podcast. All right, so that was great talking about Mr. Roku, taking a look at his chart for all of you guys out there. And that's going to do it for episode number 41 of the Traders Podcast. So grateful and appreciative that you joined me here today for the show. 42's coming next. Wishing you guys a happy holidays. I don't know if I'll have the next episode out before Christmas time. So Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Happy New Year. I will have a show up before the New Year. But I appreciate all of your support of the site. Don't forget, I am going to be teaching a free beginners trading boot camp in January. That is linked in the show notes. I'm giving away $1,000 for someone to open their own trading account. So you're going to get paid to be a part of this free course. And I'm also giving away a 7-session coaching package that's valued at $10,000 to another lucky winner. So make sure you sign up. That is linked in the show notes. And then for all my traders out there at the intermediate level who have been in this for a while, please consider taking the Candlestick Kung Fu course. Wow. Where I'm going to be teaching you everything you need to know about the language of candlesticks so that you can apply that to your trading. And remember, like we just said, prepare, learn, continuous learning. Here's an opportunity for you. Registration link is in the show notes for that as well. That is a premium course. And I'd love to hear from you. Just reach out, drop me a comment. Again, I will make a show for whatever you want. So you just tell me, I will make it happen. I love you guys. I'm going to go do some kettlebells. You know, I'm on that 100,000 kettlebell swing challenge. So I'm going to get after that. But until then, in the meantime, in between time, have a phenomenal day. I will see you back here for episode 42 of the Traders Podcast. Have a phenomenal day, everyone.